Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. The headlines. Arraignment of suspended Central Bank Governor Mr. Edwin Emefiele stalled. Court adjourns to August the 23rd following the absence of the second defendant. President Bola Tinubu insists there will be no increase in the pump price of petrol anywhere in the country. Federal government approves 5 billion naira for each state and the FCT for procurement of food items for distribution to the poor in their respective states. Plus, authorities order Yellowknife residents to evacuate as fires bear down on the Canadian city. That's News Round in view. We begin News Round from the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos, which has struck out the illegal possession of firearm charge against the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Edwin Emefiele, following an application by the Ministry of Justice to withdraw it. Justice Nicholas Owebo struck out the charge after holding that the prosecution had the statutory powers to withdraw charge against the defendant at any stage of the trial. Meanwhile, the planned arraignment of Mr. Emefiele at the Federal Capital Territory FCT High Court in Abuja has been stalled. Although Mr. Emefiele, who is the first defendant, was in court, the second defendant, Sadat Yaro, was absent, prompting the arraignment to be adjourned to the 23rd of August 2023.
It was a calm atmosphere at the FCT High Court in Maitama, Abuja, as personnel of the Department of State Services positioned themselves ahead of the planned arraignment of the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Edwin Emefiele. As journalists waited outside the courtroom to capture the arrival of Mr. Emefiele, he walks briskly into the court from one of the adjoining offices around the court, but the arraignment was, however, stalled owing to the absence of the second defendant, Saadatu Yaro. Counsel to the federal government, Mr. Mohammed Abubakar, while applying for a new date for the arraignment, informed the court that Mrs. Yaro took ill in the morning and is unable to make it to the court. The application for adjournment was not opposed by Mr. Emefiele's counsel, Akinlulu Kehinde SAN. After the adjournment, lawyers and security agents shield Mr. Emefiele from the prying cameras of journalists in court.
You come for press conference very soon. You see yourself.
Let's go and go outside.
Probably to further ensure the TV cameras are unable to capture Mr. Emefiele, the lights in the courtroom suddenly go off. Outside the courtroom, counsel to Mr. Emefiele berates the federal government for stalling the arraignment.
The matter was meant for arraignment this morning, but two things played out, which clearly showed that the complainant itself was not ready for the arraignment. The second defendant was not made available. The second defendant was not in court. And it is right that all the defendants in a charge must be present to take their plea. And consequently, the complainant on its own requested for an adjournment for the arraignment to be done at a later date.
Lawyers in defense of democracy and human rights on their part decry the planned arraignment of Mr. Emefiele.
The DSS was formed to look at internal security, to handle matters that borders on internal security, terrorism. We expected that the charges will reflect terrorism count charges. Unfortunately, or surprisingly, what we saw was matters bordering on procurement, that he gave contract for the award of land cruisers. Gentlemen, this is a charade.
The suspended governor of the central bank will be arraigned alongside Saadatu Yaro and her company April 1616 Investment Limited on a 20-count charge of procurement fraud, conspiracy, and conferring corrupt advantages on his associates to the tune of 6.9 billion naira.
President Bola Tinubu has assured Nigerians that there will be no increase in the pump price of PMS anywhere in the country. The special advisor to the president on media, Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, noted the market has been deregulated and will remain so.
No provision is there for fuel subsidy. The first subsidy is gone.
These words reverberated across the country, making clear the return of a deregulated fuel market. What followed were queues at fuel stations and a leap in the price of the product, from 197 naira to over 500 naira. The price is now at 617 naira per litre. A few days ago, reports of a possible hike in the price of fuel surfaced. The presidency says there is going to be no increase.
The president affirms that there will be no increase in the pump price of petroleum motor spirit. The market has been deregulated, it has been liberalized, and we are moving forward in that direction without looking back.
He also touched on steps to be taken within the next few weeks to ensure the price remains as it is.
The president also wishes to affirm that there are presently inefficiencies within the midstream and downstream petroleum subsectors that, once very swiftly addressed and cleaned up, will ensure that we can maintain prices where they are without having to resort to a reversal of this administration's deregulation policy in the petroleum industry.
The special advisor also shared some graphics showing prices across the West African coast, the price and queue situation across the country, and the volume of fuel being consumed across the country daily.
We are presently the cheapest, most affordable purchasing state in the West African sub-region by some distance. There's no country that is below 700 naira per litre. So this is the backdrop. We have seen that at the inception of our deregulation policy as of June 1, as Mr. President took office, we have seen PMS consumption in the country drop immediately from 67 million litres per day consumption down to 46 million litres per day consumption. The impact is evident.
The president has appealed for understanding and patience from Nigerians as these policies take effect, saying that he is determined to keep to his promise to take Nigeria from where it is to where it should be. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Government is not unmindful of the challenges being faced by Nigerians as a result of its economic policies. And that's coming from the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume. Mr. Akume, who was speaking on behalf of President Tinubu at a book launch in honor of elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark in Abuja, appealed to Nigerians to bear the pains of the reforms because it is in the interest of the country to take such tough decisions in order to remove all bottlenecks hampering the growth of the economy.
It's a gathering of the creme de la creme in Nigeria, from heads of state to top politicians, royal fathers and diplomats at the presentation of the autobiography of elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark, titled Brutally Frank. President Bola Tinubu, who is represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, uses the occasion to make an appeal to Nigerians over the economic situation in the country.
He has also asked me to tell this gathering that we are going through a difficult phase in the history of this country. But these pains are pains of birth of a new nation. Now that if you want to celebrate a child, a baby then the mother must go through some pains. But at the end of the day, there is joy, there is merriment when the baby arrives. And we will certainly be there. Solutions to problems can never be as instant as coffee, but we must certainly be there. I know the removal of fuel subsidy has created some pains, and that is why palliatives are being put in place. 100 trucks, fertilizers have been sent to the states. 100 trucks of grains have been sent, and more are coming, and more buses are also coming. We can endure this for a moment. But what we're going through today is for a better tomorrow.
Former military head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, is the chairman of the occasion and is optimistic that Nigeria will overcome its current challenges.
I am hopeful that the younger generations will be better informed on our experiences, which has brought the country to what it is today, on which our President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who would have been here with us, represent the center of our common aspirations of peace, unity, and progress.
The book highlights the experiences of the convener of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, as well as contributions to nation building. Former President Goodluck Jonathan commends the elder statesman for his roles in national development.
You will know that Edwin Clark is somebody that we need to appreciate. I didn't meet Edwin Clark until I became a deputy governor of Bayelsa State. Can't remember exactly the date. But then my governor traveled out of the country, and there was a problem within the Niger Delta. And Edwin Clark was to come to Yenagua. We had a meeting with others. That was the first time we interacted. And when I listened to him, I saw a person whose vision was for Nigeria, whose vision was for the security of this country, whose vision was for the unity of this country.
Other speakers also commend the fatherly role of the Ijaw leader.
A true elder statesman and a phenomenal patriot, Chief Dr. Edwin Clark, who has remained brutally frank in his submissions over the years. I'm therefore not surprised that his autobiography is titled Brutally Frank. Those of us who know him closely, we attest to the fact that Chief Dr. Senator Edwin Clark will not fail to tell you the brutal truth at all times.
Each and every one of us here, we have come to this world, and at some point we will leave this world. We should all know that whatever we do, either good or bad, people will remember us for something. What can you and what will you be remembered for?
We thank Allah for giving us Chief Edwin Clark, still alive and healthy. And I pray himself and our father, General Gowon, and of course other senior citizens here, they will use their vast experience in life to keep this country united.
Wonderful document.
Senator George Akume then leads other dignitaries to unveil the book.
God bless Edwin Clark. God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, the consensus of eminent Nigerians, including President Bola Tinubu, who have attended this book launch in honor of Senator Edwin Clark, is that his life exemplifies the unity and the oneness of Nigeria, something that all Nigerians must emulate. Daily Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
When News Round returns, federal government approves 5 billion naira palliatives for states. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now to other stories. The federal government has approved a sum of 5 billion naira each for state governor for the procurement of grains and fertilizers as part of effort to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. This is part of the resolution reached at the National Economic Council meeting held at the Presidential Villa, Abuja.
It's the third National Economic Council meeting since the commencement of the present administration, and governors from across the Federation and other stakeholders are in attendance. The Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, is chairing the meeting held at the Council chamber of the Presidential Villa. The meeting goes into a closed door after the national anthem. Few hours later, Governors Yaya Bello of Kogi State, Shey Makinde of Oyo State, Babagana Zulum of Borno State, Charles Soludo of Anambra State, and Ubasani of Kaduna State briefed journalists on some of the resolutions reached, beginning with the preliminary report on the 2022 flood disaster, which claimed over 600 lives.
Only 16 out of the total number of affected states forwarded their submission to NEC Secretariat to date, as expected. About 15 others were yet to do so. There is therefore the need to expedite the release of funds to affected states as recommended by the designated committee constituted by the federal government to that effect. This will go a long way in addressing the needs of the victims as well as offset debts incurred by some states to some citizens.
Some vital resolutions were also reached by the Council to address the difficulties faced by Nigerians in the aftermath of subsidy removal.
The federal government of Nigeria has released 5 trucks of rice to each state last week. Furthermore, in order to cushion the effect of food shortages across the country, the federal government has approved the sum of 5 billion naira to be given to each state for the procurement of 100,000 bags of rice, 40,000 bags of maize, and fertilizers. 52% of this money is given to states as grants, while 48% of the 5 billion naira is to be paid back on an installment basis within a period of 2 years, 20 months to the CBN by the states and the local government areas in Nigeria.
Clarification here is again, 5 billion was actually approved, but until this moment, only 2 billion have been given to the states.
A committee was also set up to interface with organized labor over the fuel subsidy removal. The committee is chaired by the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Soludo.
The National Economic Council also noted with concern the impact of the crisis in Niger, especially on food security in frontline states, and directed that the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, expedite action on the distribution of food to those who are mostly affected. From the Presidential Villa, Abuja, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Nigerians now have an idea of what President Bola Tinubu's cabinet will look like following the release of the ministerial list and the attached portfolios. In the portfolio released to newsmen, Mr. Wale Edun will man the Finance Ministry and is coordinating minister for the economy, while Mr. Dele Alake is assigned to the Solid Minerals Ministry. Former Governor of Rivers State, Ian Samwike, is in charge of the Federal Capital Territory, while Mr. Adebayo Adelabo is in charge of Power. Others are Mr. Bumi Tunji Ojo, Marine and Blue Economy, Mrs. Doris Anite, Industry, Trade and Investment, Mr. Festus Keyamo, Aviation and Aerospace Development, Mr. Haini Kane Lokuberi, Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Mr. Mohammed Badaru is Minister of Defense, while Dr. Ali Pate is the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. Former Governor Simon Lalong is in charge of Labor and Employment, while Mr. Lateef Fagbemi is the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. Still on the portfolios, Mr. Bosun Tijani will be at the helm of affairs as the Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy. Mrs. Nkirika Onyejocha is the Minister of State, Labour and Employment, while former APC National Women Leader, Dr. Betta Edu, will be in charge of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Another former governor, David Umahi, is assigned Minister of Works, and Tahir Mama, Minister of Education. For the full list, visit our website and all our social media handles. Implementation of the student loan is to commence in the 2023-24 academic session. That's according to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education, who appeared before the House of Representatives Ad hoc Committee on Student Loan, which questioned the delay in the implementation of the Act months after it was signed into law by the President. The lawmakers also want amendment to the Act to accommodate the concerns of Nigerians.
It's been 2 months since the Students' Loan Bill was signed into law by President Bola Tinubu, less than a month after assuming office. Since then, reactions have been generated from the public over its implementation, considering the requirements for attaining the loan. The President has also had to set up a committee for the review of requirements and eventual takeoff of the loan scheme.
Chief of Staff.
The House of Representatives had set up an ad hoc committee following a motion to address the concerns of Nigerians and ensure a smooth implementation of the scheme. The committee meets with the Central Bank and the Ministry of Education and begins by questioning the rise in school fees following the signing of the bill into law by the President.
We think that this school fees increase was a preemptive move by the universities across the country in anticipation that government was about to pump in resources into the student loans program.
Tuition by all federal universities is free. What students pay, and we some of us also did when we were going to school, were charges. We all know tariff rates have gone up for lights. We all know that accommodation, most universities now cannot even afford to build houses. So they go into private partnership with some developers.
The committee questions the delay in the implementation of the scheme and requests for a commencement date.
Since May, this is August 15, and you are still working out technical whatever. What are these technicalities? That is the crux of the matter. You're too slow. You are making at a snail speed, and that's not what the Nigerian students are waiting for. And you know them. It might not be 100% catchment, but the loan is going to start in the 2023-2024 academic session. Importantly, sir. Sorry?
Which starts when?
It can be October, it can be November, depending on the school.
Application from beginning to disbursement will actually be from the push of button. Nobody is going to be carrying paper around.
Nigeria is far below. I think we're one of the lowest in Africa in funding education as a ratio to our annual budget and our GDP. So what we need to be looking at in the country is how to increase this budget of education funding from the 1% being proposed in the Act to maybe 3%, so that we can be sure that there is enough funding to fund this program.
The lawmakers are looking towards a summit at the end of the month to ensure successful implementation of the Students' Loan Act. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The parent company of your award-winning station, Channels Media Group, announces its entry into the business reality space with the launch of Funded Forward, a competition show designed to nurture the next generation of social enterprises driven by Nigerian youth. The new social enterprise project, brought to you by Channels Television, explores a world where young innovators are increasingly attempting to break the gap between people and profit, with a burning question for Nigeria being, are these impact-driven business models scalable and sustainable here? Funded Forward seeks to answer this question by putting 12 young social entrepreneurs to the test as they vie for a chance to secure significant grant funding and a valuable mentorship from esteemed socialpreneurs. Over the course of 8 intense elimination rounds, contestants must convince a seasoned judging panel that they possess the rare combination of innovation, heart, and business powers necessary to succeed. The contestants at the heart of the adventure will be young, motivated Nigerians between the ages of 20 and 35 with early-stage social enterprise venture. Funded Forward is the brainchild of executive producer Zemi Momo, Corporate Social Responsibility and Social Impact Programming Director at the Channels Media Group. Reflecting on the vast potential of Nigerian youth, Ms. Momo says Nigeria has one of the world's largest youth population, with about 70% of the country's population being under 30. Here, we have a huge potential economic driver if we can just tap into the entrepreneurial and problem-solving spirit that is so evident in young Nigerians. In collaboration with Lighthouse Television and Filmworks, Funded Forward is set to premiere on Channels TV in the last quarter of 2023. Eligible individuals are encouraged to apply by going to https://casting.fundedforward.tv. We end news round in Canada, where thousands of people in Yellowknife are fleeing a wildfire in the outskirts of the city. Yellowknife is one of the largest cities in Canada, housing around 20,000 people who have now crowded into the local airport and roads out of town. Hundreds are also lining up for emergency military evacuation flights, although many complain of being turned away from packed emergency flights. That's it on News Round. Thank you for joining us. Do join us again same time next week. Until then, it's bye.